once an old man who lived on a beach, in a shack that he'd made with his own two hands, out of driftwood that washed up on the shore. It wasn't much of a place. It had an old crooked metal chimney and no door, just one large window that you climbed in and out of. Only, of course, you never did, because the old man had no friends and wanted none. For him, the sea itself was company enough, and he spent his days walking up and down the tide line to see what gifts the sea might have brought him. One morning it might be a crate of oranges washed in from Africa, or perhaps he'd find an old badminton racket that he'd used to swat flies, or even maybe a bit of old rope that he'd used to hang up his washing. For the people in the village nearby, the old man was strange and odd, and they warned their children to stay away, but of course they didn't. When the old man woke from his afternoon nap and opened up the shutters of his little shack and found 8 or 9 children sat on the sand, gone quiet the moment the old man's red nose and beard appeared. "Ah, go on now, be off with you," he'd say. But they'd just sit and hold their ground. "I suppose there's no getting rid of you till you've had a story." The children would nod excited. What was it we had yesterday? Ah yes, the Dream Gypsies. Before that, the Bad Breath Pirates. But have I ever told you the story of the man who fell in love with the moon? And of course he never had. And that was the amazing thing, that the old man came up with a new story every single day. Now the adults in the village, they'd been children too, down here on the beach listening to his stories, but they'd long forgotten those days. And now they couldn't bring themselves to trust somebody who had no friends or no job. And one day, that distrust was given a reason to turn to hatred. One bright summer afternoon, a car pulled up, and out stepped a man in a very expensive, shiny suit, and he walked straight into the mayor's office like he owned the place. Shortly afterwards, the word was passed around the village for everybody to meet in the old church. They all gathered around, sat on the pews in this gloomy, dark old church, wondering what could be so important that they were all called together like this, when the mayor took the pulpit. "Today will be the day that will change your lives forever," he said. "Mr. Farrell here represents a very powerful oil company. They want to buy our entire village. From the fields where our cows graze, to the houses we live in, to the beach down below. We're going to be filthy rich." And when he told them how much money they'd be getting, everybody broke out into spontaneous applause. People were even dancing in the aisles. Until the butcher said, "But you suppose the old man will sell?" And everybody froze in mid-celebration. Well, that afternoon, the old man woke up from his afternoon nap, opened up the shutters of his window, and there, on the beach, instead of 8 or 9 children, were about 50 or 60 very stern-looking adults. "I'll come straight to the point," the mayor said, stepping forwards. "How much would you sell your shack for?" The old man said, "This old thing? It's just a bunch of old driftwood and rusty nails. Can't be worth more than a couple of $100. Still, it is home. And, you know, there's no price you can put on that." The mayor said, "Yes, but we could give you enough money that you could live wherever you want and have enough to have all that you want." That's a very interesting offer. You see, I'm rather happy here. And as for having all that you want, well, I don't believe anybody has that. Another emergency meeting was held in the church that night, and tempers were running high. To be so close to getting rich and to be held back by the stupid obstinacy of a stubborn old man who didn't understand what money was worth, it was just too much to bear. So they decided upon a very drastic plan. They would starve him out. The grocer and the baker, well, they stopped deliveries at once, and the plumber cut the water pipes leading down towards the beach. And they placed a blockade on the path leading down, Then they'd see how long it took the old man to change his mind. But when they went along to the cliffside a couple of days later to see how their plan was working, they saw the old man had just started fishing more and gathering mussels from the rock pool at the end of the beach. He cooked his food with old driftwood that had washed up, and he gathered rainwater in a couple of old umbrellas that he'd found on the tide line that morning. Finally, someone, no one knew who, but someone crept down to the beach one night and poured petrol over the old man's roof. Struck a match, and the whole thing went up in flames instantly. The next morning, the entire village gathered down there on the sands, staring at the ashes and charred timber where the old man's shack used to be. Nobody had courage yet to step forwards and look for the old man's bones. And as they stood there, the waves, the sea crashing behind them, something was unlocked in their mind. Memories of when they'd been here down here on the beach as children, listening to the old man's stories, came flooding through. Images of Indian emperors and whales that sang and kissing tribes. And as they stood there, tears streamed down their cheeks as they remembered just how much they had forgotten. Do you think I should put a door in this time? I was thinking about rebuilding the old place anyway. And everybody turned in astonishment to see the old man walking along the tide line with an old crate under his arm. I found a box of grapefruit washed in this morning. They're rather good if you cut off the bottom half. Can I tempt anybody? And all at once, they understood what he'd been trying to tell them from the very beginning. Standing here on the beach, listening to the waves come in and the old man's stories, that was part of their childhood, part of the story of their lives. And there was no price you could ever put on that. So a few days later, when Mr. Farrell of the oil company pulled up in the village, he found the place deserted. He ordered his driver to take him closer towards the beach, and looking over the cliffside, he shook his head as he saw all the villagers down there on the beach, rebuilding the old man's shack. "Put the roof straight there," the mayor said, not getting his hands too dirty. While to the side, the old man talked to the children and not a few of the adults too. Well now, you'll be wondering where my stories come from. Have you not already guessed? Just like everything else in my life, they wash up here on the shore. The sea is the greatest storyteller of them all.